At 16, I remember I was in bed, trying to sleep. I had classes the next day, and so, I was trying to snuggle in and trying to go to sleep. Until a thought popped into my head. And it was, how would it feel to be dead? How would it feel to not exist? And as I thought about it, as I tried to imagine if I couldn't sense anything, if I couldn't see, if I couldn't smell, if I couldn't taste, if I couldn't hear, if I couldn't think, there was this tightness in my chest that was forming. There's a lump in my throat. And I came to realize that I was having a panic attack. And I didn't realize it until years later that was my first panic attack. But I panicked. I bawled my eyes out because the existential fear, the dread, was insurmountable. I imagined the unimaginable. It was scary as fuck. So how do you conquer your fear of death? And towards that, I will say, you can never truly conquer it. You can't. Rather, it is a practice. Like medicine, like learning, like teaching. It is something you practice, and you get better over time. But you cannot completely conquer it. Now, you can ignore it, right? You can start having thoughts about death, and then choose to block it out. Block out the negative emotion. Ignore it. But that'll only cause further anguish down the line. Because there'll be times when you can't block it out. When you do start thinking more and more about it. Where you do get into these thought spirals. And then you have a panic attack. And then you have a midlife crisis. Ignoring the problem does not solve anything. So what about religion? Religion is a very common source of comfort towards death, right? Christianity promises that if you're good, you'll go to heaven. Islam promises that, the same thing, really. Many religions promise a life after death. And I won't get into any more detail about specific religions. But the key point is that you believe that there is life after death. You believe that you still exist. But you cannot know. And that's the whole essence with faith, right? You can't trust it, but you must have faith in it. But you still have fear, right? Because what if that isn't true? What if there is no life after death, right? There's still that fear. And I think that even if you're Christian, even if you're Muslim, even if you're Jewish, even if you're whatever, Stoic practices are practical and very useful for this fear. So how does Stoicism fit? Memento mori, meaning to think about death. This is the practice of constantly, not constantly, not every single minute, but practicing thinking about death often. And the reason why Stoics practice this is to prepare themselves for death. One thing in the Stoic philosophy is to prepare oneself for their eventual demise, to die with dignity. And memento mori is one such practice, to do that. Now, how does it do this? By constantly thinking about your death, by replaying it over and over in your mind, by thinking about what that last day of your life could be. You are prepared. You know roughly what it's going to be like when you die. You're more prepared, at least, compared to those who haven't thought about it constantly. Now, secondly, by thinking and contemplating about death, you can appreciate life more. Without death, there is no purpose in life. And the Stoics knew this. When you can appreciate that there is an end to this life, right? There will be a time when you do not exist, or I do not exist anymore, where the people we know do not exist anymore. And by having that perspective, by knowing that, you can stop wasting the time that you have. You can stop wasting the conversations with people that don't matter. You can start living truly. Because in 100 years, it doesn't even matter. In 100 years, you're going to be gone. At the very most, you might be remembered. In like textbooks or just word of mouth or whatever. But most likely not. So nobody will know you. You'll live your life, and then you'll die. So what is the point in trying to live a life that is not truly yours? There is none. So back to the question, how do you conquer your fear of death? You can't. You can never conquer it fully. This is one battle you can never win. Death will always win. You can never change that. You will die. And that is scary as fuck. If I wasn't trying to use all my brain power to rationalize this, I'd be fucking scared as fuck, bro. I'd be like, maybe having a panic attack if I thought too much into it. Yeah, it's scary as fuck. But the thing is, that's good. Remember that fear. And live a life, right? The solution to conquering your fear of death is to live fully. For those who fear death, it's mainly that we fear not being able to experience things anymore. But if you've experienced enough, the fear of death won't be as strong. There was a quote from Marcus Aurelius where life is a banquet, and we can spend time in the banquet, we can enjoy the banquet, but we will eventually have to leave. And so if you're in the banquet of life, and you choose to not enjoy it, you're going to leave anyway. And that is a life wasted. I'm reminded of a quote from Alex Hormozy, which goes along the lines of, if I could choose a story that would become an epic story or not, I would choose the epic story. Why? Because that's a life well lived. And that, living your life truly, that is the solution to your fear of death.